Hello, Booktube. I made the tactical error, but the strategic success for the haul wars that are currently gripping Booktube of going to the Brattle this morning. It was a bad idea, I freely admit that, but I had a ball. If that counts for anything, I had a blast, uh, and I got a ton of books that I want to show you. I didn't uh, I didn't take the train to the Brattle, and I didn't take it back. I didn't lug any of these books. I was driven there, and someone else did all of the lugging. But it was still, uh, well, it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. Chatted with everybody, tottered around the sale lot, and found a ton of things. Starting with ephemera, I always tell myself when I'm at the Brattle not to get ephemera. But I found a piece of ephemera that I have never seen. In the United States, there's a thing called Free Comic Book Day. Once a year, publishers will put into comic shops. It doesn't mean that that week's comics are free. That week's comics are still $5 each, for backgrounds that don't exist, for character designs that are done by computer. But comic book companies will put free comic books in comic book stores in hopes of increasing foot traffic, and I think it works. I think Free Comic Book Day is pretty popular. But the thing is, the things that are made as the free comic books often slip through the cracks of future collections. They become collectible in their own right, even though they're free. They don't cost anything. And I found today at the Brattle a free comic book from Free Comic Book Day that I actually would have wanted. It's this. It's a particular. See, there you go. Free Comic Book Day. A particular issue of Nexus's Greatest Hits, by Mike Barron, one of the creators of Nexus. That is Nexus. He is Horatio Hellpop. He is a hero from 500 years in the future, who is given superpowers by a weird, enigmatic alien, specifically to kill mass murderers. His superpowers don't go away, so he can use them for anything. But if he doesn't go on these missions to kill these retired and mass murderers who think they've gotten away with it, he is tormented by nightmares until he does. Nexus had an initial print run in black and white. Comic book fans noticed it and really liked it. Then it hunted around for a publisher and found a publisher. Then it lost that publisher and went a long time in the wilderness, I think 10 years, without any new Nexus material. I think this might have been designed to launch, to announce, to drum up interest in Nexus now having a new publishing home. But what this is Mike Barron going through various issues of Nexus, showing you what's that down there. There's all sorts of science fiction action, sure, but what's that down there? Well, that looks like a beagle. Mike Barron in interstitial prose here that's loaded with typos. No one must have looked at this ahead of time. He takes you through highlights from various issues of Nexus and describes what's going on and why he's chosen this highlight. I didn't know that this existed. And I can't imagine. See, you've got these great covers, these great Steve Rude covers. Rude the Dude doing painted covers there for Nexus. This is when Nexus had moved to First Comics. And I didn't know that this issue had even... There's nothing new in here, but I didn't know that this even existed. So it's a little tiny bit of Nexus lore. There we have a poker game, Robbie the Robot, Elvis, Jack Kirby. Elvis is saying, "Yo, king," and Kirby is saying, "No, you're the king." And Elvis is saying, "No, sir, my pappy told me you are the man." And there's the Golden Guardian, who is a Jack Kirby creation. And the issue just takes you through, shows you the evolution of Steve Rude's artwork, how much better it gets, but it takes you through all these various issues. So that was wonderful. That was totally unexpected. That's a piece of ephemera that I will gladly keep. Okay, then we can do mass market paperbacks. I found this two-parter, which you would think I'd be all over this like cream cheese. You'd think I would love this more than anything that had ever happened in the science fiction world. I don't love it like that, and I don't know why. So maybe I will read them. I will read these things again and see if maybe I'm just missing the science fiction epic that is absolutely designed for me. It's Dan Simmons, and it's a science fiction epic based on the Iliad, for Pete's sake. It's Ilium and Olympus. Two big, fat science fiction novels in which the Trojan War is refought at the foot of Olympus Mons on Mars, tallest mountain in the inner solar system. With aliens and simulacra of Greek heroes, you'd think I would love it. I'm going to try it again. I read these as they were coming out. Was that the early 2000s? Yeah, 2003 and then 2005, I think. And of course, I'm a huge Dan Simmons fan, but I admit I'm a huge fan of mostly the stuff he's done that isn't science fiction. That has only the slightest tinge of science fiction. Whereas this is as science fiction as you get. I'm going to give these another try. I found them. The Brattle must have put them in my path for a reason. Then I found an Oxford World Classic of John Buchan, the author of the 39 Steps. This is his book Witchwood, about a heroic priest fighting against the forces of irrationality growing in his own congregation. This is set in the time of the Covenanters and the time of the Great Montrose. And Buchan wrote a biography of the Marquis of Montrose and knew the subject matter left, right, and center. I also knew the countryside that's featured in here really well because he grew up in the countryside. That's why the countryside descriptions in 39 Steps is so evocative. When he was researching Montrose, he must have realized, there's plenty of stuff here for a novel. So he did a couple. I don't know who the John Buchan fan was at Oxford, but Oxford World Classics did a lot of John Buchan. They did not just do the 39 Steps. They even did a lot of Ballantyne. Coral Island is an Oxford book. There's a lot of boys' adventure stories that were added to the Oxford World Classics lineup when I don't think even the most generous, sentimental reader would say they belong there. I read Witchwood. I didn't read it in this edition, but I read Witchwood a long, long time ago and remember it as being singularly inert. But maybe it's time to read it again. I've read 39 Steps several times since then, so maybe it's time to revisit it. For $1, it's worth the risk. Then we have a novel. I have praised this novel many times before on this channel. I get copies and send them out again. This is from 2016. This is The Kid by Ron Hansen. A novel about Billy the Kid that is really, really good. Really, really enjoyable historical fiction. From the author of The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. This was written decades after The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which is a book that Dude Bros profess to love. They don't know anything about this book. They're not interested in good writing. They're not interested in writing at all. And they haven't read The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. They haven't read the book. It's a key thing to remember. The Dude Bros have not read that book. The only reason they profess to like it, there's two reasons. One is because the title is long. And that makes it feel real, man. It makes it feel real. But the other reason, and the main reason, is because the title stipulates that Jesse James is killed by a coward. And Dude Bros like to think that they are not going to die of natural causes. First of all, they're not going to die with tubes up their nose of the lung cancer that they are courting every day. They're not going to die that way. Instead, they're going to get shot. And they're not going to get shot honorably. They're going to get shot by a coward. You've got the whole of the Dude Bro worldview in one title of one book. So they all profess to love it without having read it. And this, even if they had some of them read it and thought that was really good, it would never lead them to go on to read the rest of this author. They've got to be sure where they're putting their feet. They don't want to read something that isn't completely in the Dude Bro hymnal. But I love this book. And I every time I get a copy, I send it away. So I was happy to find another one. And then I found a copy of, I believe this is the author's debut. This is Brad Land did a memoir called Goat. It's really effective, really, really good. I don't usually cotton to memoirs by extremely young men who don't really have a story to tell or don't have the wisdom to reflect on the story, even if they do have one to tell. Like for instance, well, we had this is a hardcover. Do we have a picture of you? You were a young hottie. Yeah, the author's very young, and here he tells his own story, which is horrifying. I mean, admittedly, it is a story um, that starts with tragedy and just moves on to another tragedy. The main character, I guess we could call it the author, in this book is betrayed, horribly betrayed, twice in the course of this book, and neither one is supportable, and neither one is really predictable. So it really does rip your heart out. And the second half of the book is all about fraternity hazing and fraternity violence and the things that would cause you to put up with that, the longing for belonging. I think that this was made into a movie starring Nick Jonas. I think that, but I don't know that it was ever released. But I read this when it first came out, 2004, and I liked it. So I saw it again. I grab it. I'll give it another read. Then these next three, somebody must have dumped some review copies at the Brattle. I checked, and none of them are mine. They're all too old for me, and they're not things I would have that I would have dumped in any case. But somebody must have done that, because there were a bunch, and I got a bunch of them. I got My Name is Red by Orhan Pamuk in this galley copy. I like the size of it. I like the design of it better than this. Might be a UK galley copy, because I don't think the galley copy looked like this in America. But this is Pamuk he's a wonderful writer. He's a great writer, and he's also a rewarding writer because he isn't wedded to a tone. He's perfectly willing to change what he's doing from book to book. His book Snow, for instance, is nothing like this book. This book is really, as a certain critic said about a novel of John Barth's, this is really the apotheosis of plot. It's historical fiction. It's set in a narrow group of text illuminators. It's all very bookish, but it is all about plot. Whereas Pamuk doesn't have to do that. He isn't always like that at all, and he's equally good no matter what. Same thing with Mario Vargas Llosa. I like an author who's willing and able to do that. That no, my next fiction project, I'm going to change everything about the way I tell the story. And if my agent or some hanger-on says, well, that might not be as popular, well, I don't care. I genuinely don't care. I will follow an author like that pretty much to the ends of the earth. And I don't have a copy of My Name is Red, so I'm happy to have it now. I will give it a reread. I found a review copy of This Great Big Thing, City on Fire by Garth Risk-Hallberg. I had this advanced copy forever and ever. I don't think mine looked like this, so I'm thinking that maybe these I haven't really examined them, but I'm thinking these might be galley copies for somewhere other than the U.S. But this is his big sprawling novel of New York. It's you see the quintessential image there on the cover is a water tower on top of a building. Those are rarer and rarer. But once upon a time, the rooftops of New York were absolutely chock-a-block with wooden water towers that would just collect rain. And there would be that building's water reservoir would be that tower. You only have to have a couple of these things where the rusting struts give out, or the water turns septic, or somebody dumps a body in a water tower. You only have to have that happen a couple of times for realtors to start getting rid of these things, which is why they're not as common as they once were. I have exactly one photograph taken from the window of the apartment that I had when I lived in New York City, and all you can see is water towers. But anyway, this is a big personality-driven story. I really think that it was Garth Risk-Hallberg's only novel. He has another one. He had one just recently, but I really think this was the only one he had in him. We'll see. I could be wrong about that. Those creative springs could revive, but this is wonderful. It really never lets up. Then I found a trade paper. No, this is a galley copy of. I don't think you are U.S. You gonna tell me? or maybe. Uh, well, yeah, maybe this is printed in the U.S. This is Timothy Snyder. This is his book Black Earth, kind of companion piece to Bloodlands. And Black Earth and Bloodlands you simply must read if you're interested in the subject of World War II and its oppression and its killing fields. I thought that I had read the last word on these subjects. Of course, those subjects, the subject of concentration camps and European warfare in World War II, have been written about so many millions of times that I really thought I had read all that could be done. And these two books, Black Earth and Bloodlands, proved me wrong. Not only with the fresh view that they take of the subject matter, with their incredible narrative power. I really do recommend these. And as soon as I saw this, I realized that I have a copy of Bloodlands. But I somehow I saw this and immediately realized, oh, you don't have a copy of Black Earth. So now I do, and it's a review copy from 2015. Uh, okay, so those were the review copies. Then we have 3 hardcovers, and then we'll be done. The first of these is a romance novel. This is from 2020. Is that right? No, 2002. Sorry about that. 2002. Before I was in the reviewing game again. This is The Last Chance Cafe by Linda Lale Miller. I sold this at my bookstore. I read this. I borrowed it from the bookstore. My bookstore was a retail shop in a retail chain. So one of the benefits that you got as a worker there, I don't know if it's true in still or in retail chains, was that you could borrow a new book. You take the dust jacket off, leave the dust jacket in the office, and borrow the book. As long as you kept it in good shape, you could take it home and read it. I used to do that a lot. The store didn't make it very easy. You had to find a manager and bother them with it, and they were always had something more important to do. But I took advantage of that a lot. And I read this mainly because of 2 reasons. At the time, hardcover romance novels like this were still comparatively rare. And also, I loved the design of the cover. I just loved it. It's right on the borderline between a stereotypical romance novel cover and a novel cover. And I remember liking it, but it was 20 years ago, so I'm going to give this another try. For $1. Certainly, I'll give it another try. Then I found a reference work. This is a great reference work. I have a paperback of an earlier version of this. This is John Gross, the great John Gross, and this is his New Oxford Book of Literary Anecdotes. And he is great. He is a great anthology builder. Just a wise and wonderful anthology builder. I really wish I had. He did an anthology, the Oxford Book of. There was a whole series of Oxford Book of sea stories, adventure stories, death, friendship, letters. He did one that's probably the most remarkable volume in that whole series. It was called the Oxford Book of English Prose. Just that. And it's amazing. I really wish I could find a copy of that thing. But I love paging through things like this. I won't read it from front to back, but I love having this kind of a resource. And then the last thing, which is something that I've hauled on this channel before. I don't always see a copy of this thing. It is a masterpiece of modern history. And when I see a copy, I get it, and usually somebody wants it. This is David Kynaston, and this is his book, Austerity Britain. Just a big, sweeping history of Britain immediately after the war. Full of personalities. It's full of all the political people and the pop culture people, but also full of ordinary people and what they had to go through. Amazingly readable, amazingly good. I said that same things about this years and years ago when I hauled it the last time on this channel and got rid of that volume. Now I found a copy again. The only reason that I get rid of these things so readily here on this channel is specifically because at my bookstore I am going to see another copy. Whereas if you have a used bookstore, you probably won't. Your used bookstore probably is not out buying the way mine is. So it's only fair that if I find something that is not common and you really want it, it's only fair that I send it to you, and because I'm likely to see another copy and you aren't. But I grabbed this because this is a keeper of a volume of history. Just plain and simple. So So that's it. That was a Brattle book haul for the Hall Wars. I'm afraid that a Steve pyramid is out of the question today. Not just because there's a lot of books. So I'm going to wrap this up. It was a lot of fun. This is always when you do something that everybody's yelling at you not to do. The foremost consideration for me at times like this has to be: did I enjoy it enough to compensate for the payment that is going to be due? And I think I did. I had a blast. So I'm going to wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.